What's up, everybody? How's it going? Hopefully, the stream's starting all right. How are you doing on this Sunday? And welcome to number 20 through 11 of my top 50 anime and manga stream. I hope you guys join along and enjoy it. And I'm really excited to talk about some more of my favorite series of all time. What else have you guys been watching? I know I was super excited for the first two episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen season 3. It's always nice when they drop like 2 episodes, and I know they did that because of the movie that was like the recap movie that they did, but I thought that the first 2 episodes were great. There's some animation things maybe with them that um, or I guess some editing things that were going on with the Jujutsu Kaisen season 3, but like with the way they structured Yuta's fight with Yuji was like fine, I guess, but I don't expect there to be like weird editing like that moving forward. And overall, I thought the episode's really good. Uh, Ronan, good to see you. Hi, how are you? Is it Quickstree? Quickstry? Hi, how are you today? And Read with Jules, hello. Thank you all for joining the chat. I'm doing great. Excited to talk some anime. We'll jump in just a minute or two here and start talking about some, really big heavy hitters. But has anyone watched JJK season 3? Because it's I feel like the episodes were pretty good. And I love the Colon games and can't wait. Later today, I'll be releasing my next video essay, which is kind of revisiting the first two arcs of Jujutsu Kaisen and kind of going back over, seeing the quality of them. The kind of idea of it is that I didn't really love season 1 when I first watched it, so kind of looking back on it generally with a new lens, and then going over season 2 a little bit as we just like prep for season 3 coming out. So that should be out a couple hours after the stream's done, which is exciting. And then I'm really excited for Free Ren Season 2 to start, so there could be a Free Ren video kind of end of this week, early next week. So look forward to that. And then, of course, next week we'll be doing the finale for the stream. Made it to top 20. That's exciting. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about these series, and so we'll jump in just a minute here. I'm waiting for all of JJK season 3 to come out first, then I'll watch it. Man, that's dedication. Like I am into the idea of binging, especially with like sometimes with anime, because it's, the episodes are so short that you're like, man, if I had like 3 episodes to watch a week, that would be better. But it's hard. I love when we do get a series that's so popular like Jujutsu Kaisen and so hype like it. It's like I really want. It's the only kind of show that scratches the itch of getting on social media and hearing people talk about it. And it's not like it was back in like 2018, 2019 with certain series that everyone would just talk about, but Jujutsu Kaisen does kind of come close for me. So I will be watching weekly, and I'm excited to I've been waiting to make a video on Maki, but I figured I'd make it a little more leaning towards anime onlys, and so once we get a couple more episodes into this season, I'll be able to record that and make that video, which I'm really excited to do. And there's a handful of stuff where it's like it's probably just better for me to wait till the anime onlys are caught up, and that's always like a weird balance when you've read the manga, but more people will watch your video if you make it focused on the anime. And it's like, how do I come at this not with the knowledge that I have going forward? Have you watched Fire Force? I've only seen a couple episodes, and I know it has, like, I know a lot of people are turned off by the fan service of it, and I don't even remember the 2 episodes very well, but a lot of people do like the concept and things like that. I don't know, do you watch it? And if so, do you enjoy it or recommend it? I know I think the new season, haven't they announced that it's like they're adapting like a crazy amount of chapters in a really short amount of time, which is always scary, I think. But there are a lot of people who love it, right? But I think we can probably dive right in um, to hello Unikimi, hello one of the YouTube members. Thanks for all of the support and thanks for joining the stream. It's always good to see you, and hope you're doing well. I think it's really good. Well, maybe I'll check it out. And does the fan service ever get a little bit less? Like, if it gets less, I'm more inclined, I feel like, because I feel like it's just like so much more than like regular series. Any recommendations, manga or fiction? Well, always. I'm currently reading The Strength of the Few, if you're into fantasy novels, which is the second book in the Hierarchy trilogy. The first book is called The Will of the Many, which is like a new series. The Strength of the Few came out a couple months ago. It's by James Islington. I think I'm pronouncing his last name right. He was an author he had made a fantasy trilogy before that was published, and then he self-published The Will of the Many, and then it just like picked up, and it's this kind of Roman inspired fantasy series. The first book is like he goes to a school kind of vibe, and the second book gets crazy, and it's really good. So that's what I'd recommend right now. I just bought The Climber Volume 1, so I really want to read that, and so maybe that'd be my manga recommendation. Just like flipping through it, you just like know it's going to be amazing. I'm going to binge season 3 as well, because I've read the manga and I'm not really eager to watch it weekly. Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. Like, sometimes when you do read the manga, it's like, oh, whatever. Like, I'll watch it all in its entirety because I know where it's actually going. But yeah, I do think... but I just like I like hearing people's like first reactions to everything, and of course I want to make videos on it while season 3 is coming out. I like Fire Force. It's only sometimes for the fan service and it gets less, but it's hard to watch because of it. Yeah, so maybe I'll dive into it at some time. Because I have like that's a handful of people who seem to really enjoy it. But there's one character whose power is kind of based on fan service. I feel like from only watching a couple episodes and seeing like clips and images of stuff, I think I know who you're talking about. So that makes sense. But yeah, let's dive into the top 20 here. And so I won't go over at least at the beginning of the stream all of the other picks. I'll go over 21 just so we have like a spot to start off on. So I'll pull up the list here. So 21 was Death Note. And remember, like, a lot of these are a mix between my personal preference, but also me trying to be kind of objective. And so there's some series that are hard to rank. Death Note's like one of the ones where it's like, man, this was, a top 5 series for me, like 10 years ago. And it's probably a good thing that it's fallen down because it means I've just watched so much great stuff, over the last handful of years. And so moving to 20, first one today is Parasite the Maxim. Parasite the Maxim. This is anime. I've not read the manga. Early 2000s series, even though the manga is, I think, a 90s maybe, if not even older. And it's this kind of body horror series where these parasites or aliens like come down and they start infecting people and trying to take people over, and the main character it takes over his hand, and so he has this kind of Jujutsu Kaisen relationship almost, where you've got two characters who share the same body, but instead of having like the number one villain, he learns to work with the parasite, and it leads to a lot of really interesting, I think, philosophical questions, and there's kind of larger questions about humanity and humanity's nature that I think underlies this series and adds a lot to my enjoyment of it. Body horror isn't necessarily my favorite thing ever, like, and horror just in general. And I know this is kind of a blend. It's not like pure horror. There's a lot of action in it as well. But I think it's done really, really well here. Like, the designs of the parasites and how they take over humans' bodies and the way that they kind of unravel, like someone's face will kind of split into like 3. I just find it really, really compelling and kind of, off-putting in like a really good way. And then there's just some like great character development from our main character, who is this kind of shy kid and who has to kind of be a person who tries to take this head on, because he's in this really unique position where he's befriended one of the parasites. And so there's a lot of tension to every scene, because I think they handle two characters having the same body really well. And then it's just kind of like the development of the show that I think is really fantastic. And then the anime has this really, it's really interesting, because the anime I know comes out so much later than the manga, but it's really, really of the early 2000s in the soundtrack of it. And it's this like synth, kind of approach to the storytelling, and like almost like dubsteppy type of feeling that's going on with the series, and yet it complements it really well. And maybe that was their way of trying to make the series feel modern, even though the manga was older. But I think it's just fantastic. The series isn't super long; it's maybe 25 episodes. And I had watched a handful of it when it initially aired, and then ended up watching the series in its full maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And so, yeah, I think Parasite has, for me, it's like when I initially watched it, I probably would have placed it around here on my list. Like, it probably was like around 20. And then over the years, it's just anytime I think back on it, I'm like, there's a lot there that I really like. I love the character development. I love the atmosphere of the world, and specifically the parasites and how they, how they interact with the characters and how they ask really difficult questions about humanity. I just think it was really, really great. It's one series that, like, honestly, if I were to rewatch it, I would definitely make a video on it, like next, because I would just be too compelled to talk about the series, I think. And so, yeah, I think it's fantastic. And really one of the cool things, and there's, on top of it, it does actually have a lot of like layered fight scenes that are like really violent in like a fun way. And so it has this balance of kind of fun horror, violent action type things, and then really great character work and really, really, really great ideas underneath it. And so, yeah, it's kind of been a mainstay for me. This is one of my favorites. I even watched the live action. Oh, is the live action good? I've definitely seen like clips of it, and I would definitely be, if it's good enough, I'd be interested in checking it out. But yeah, this is one that like you knew you would like, but the fact that it's this high on this list is just a testament to I think how well it's aged, and just it has so much depth to it with its characters. And so, yeah, I think Parasite is a fantastic series. Moving to number 19 is Land of the Lustrous. And this is the manga for me. And so Land of the Lustrous, I know it has one season of an anime, and I've watched a little bit of it by Studio Orange, which was maybe their first production as a studio, I think. But Land of the Lustrous is this kind of apocalyptic sci-fi series that follows these gems, and there are these characters who are fighting this like war against aliens, and they all follow their teacher, and it is this like they live, like there's not a lot of other life around them, and they've lived for really long times, and they're really fragile, and it really is all about, again, like the main character, who's Foes is her name, and she's the character right here, who with the green hair, or I guess they're the character, I should say, as their gems, so their gender is fluid. But Foes is, I just was talking about the development of like Parasite the Maxim, but Land of the Lustrous actually antes up the level. So as Foes wants to fight in, this war that they're fighting against, and there's like these beings coming from from other planets, and they're and you're wondering what's happened to civilization, or what's gone on to get everything to this point. And there's kind of like a religious aspect to the manga. um, but what's really interesting about the series is as Foe starts to go through things, and as she pushes herself and tries to get involved in this stuff, she gets broken and remade like time and time again, and just completely changes in just like the most beautiful way. And so her character is one that is worthy of many video essays, I think, and is the driving force of this series. And then you just have, like things about the world building and the kind of mysteries that you're trying to discover. There's a lot you really don't know about the world, and so that's really fun. And the other level of that this manga reaches is in its paneling and construction. It it takes a lot of risks. It's very simplistic in design, but also it's just really challenging because of the setting that you're in and the kind of positions that the characters are in. And so, yeah, Land of the Lustrous, I read, also like maybe it was a pandemic read for me. And, it does an amazing thing with like a time skip near the end of the manga that is just like so cool, and it coincided with her taking a really long hiatus from the manga to kind of reflect the kind of risk that she was taking, and the series ends beautifully. And so it is just like, if you're into kind of heady, difficult sci-fi series, then like this is one that I would strongly recommend, um, because it's unbelievable. And you just think about foes, like, so you have this, what's interesting about the design is that they are these gems that are like made of rocks, so they can be remade, and how that changes you over time. And it's kind of a beautiful signal to trauma, and how trauma can change us, and but not necessarily for the worst, but just that you keep remaking the story of who you are when you go through events like that. And that's visually represented in Land of the Lustrous in just like one of the most beautiful ways I've ever seen. Reading Land of the Lustrous was such a great experience. Yeah, like I know the anime is like decent, and obviously it only is one season, so it doesn't cover, I think it's 13 volumes is Land of the Lustrous, so it's not like super long, but longer than that. But yeah, reading it is just like, you will binge through it all to get through some of the mysteries that, of course I won't spoil, and to see foes change is just like, you can't stop, but blaze through it. And so Land of the Lustrous, I think, is just like, devastating and profound, made me cry a lot. Like, honestly, like that's a great, like the perfect description of it, is devastating and profound. Yeah, it's one that's also due for a reread. I did make a video on it around when I read it, so if you are interested in that and you want to know a little more about the series, you can check that out. But also, that's me 5 years ago making a video, so if I ever remake it, especially with the manga's ending now, I definitely kind of want to, just talking about it makes me want to reread it. So moving to number 18, got Code Geass, quite the iconic series. So Code Geass is a 2007-ish mecha anime that follows Lelouch and his kind of journey to trying to save the world from his father. And he does it when he gets a Geass ability that allows people to listen to one command of his when he looks them in the eye. And so Code Geass is this kind of super genius narrative. It gets compared to Death Note a lot because you follow two characters who are extraordinarily smart, who are participating in like a chess game at all times, and really overreading situations, and really going, in-depth plans as they're trying to hide their identities, as well. In Death Note, Light obviously can't reveal who he is, and in Code Geass, Lelouch takes the name of Zero as this kind of in that series, this kind of terrorist who is trying to change the world. And so, but for me, Code Geass, I view them very similarly. Code Geass is like has some messiness to it. There is some parts in both part one and part two. It's about a 50 episode series, right? Where it's a little bit messy, and part two has that a little more. But it also has just this ending that is so perfectly fitting for the series that other shows have tried to do something similar, and it just never quite lands the same way. And I actually just love the cast so much that a lot of the kind of issues that a lot of people have with the series like just don't resonate with me as much. I think the first thing that people always say is, so you get these grand episodes with these huge plots, and Lelouch pulls off this huge kind of heist almost to screw over the military that's occupying Japan, Britannia, and he's, to try to position himself and, like this rebellion. And he's all doing it undercover. And then you have what everyone cites, which is the cat episode, where it's like, and then there's an episode where they chase a cat around campus. And it's like, I think that's kind of the charm of the series, is episodes like that. It is some of the mundane slice of life. He's just a teenager, and there's like fun teenage settings within all of this like heightened drama where he's not able to reveal who he is. And so I find that really, really great. And I think the entire cast of Code Geass is just fantastic. And I find myself, anytime I think about the series, I find really fondly looking back on it. And one where the criticisms, I just think like, it's okay to not like one of the most popular series of its time, but I think a lot of the criticisms are go a little too far, because people are like, well, why is this show so popular? It shouldn't be. I've not gone on to experience any of the sequel material in some of the movies and stuff, which I've heard are not very good, and I don't really want to taint the perfect ending of Code Geass. And I've seen the show a handful of times, but really when I, the last rewatch for me really cemented how much I love some of the quirkiness of the series, and like some of the things that people cite they don't like as much. And so, but everything starts with Lelouch, and, he is one of the best protagonists, I think. And there's just like a lot of, moments that I really like. So you think about the Euphemia moment. If you've seen the series from near the end of season 1, a lot of people cite that as either one of the best moments in the show, or just like a moment that's really unearned, and the writers are just trying to force drama. But I actually think the moment fits really well with the kind of ideas in the series, and how close some of the tensions are between these political factions. And so yeah, for Code Geass, it's the cast, it's the drama, the over drama of the series that I just can't get enough of. And specifically that the first part is like a top 10 show for me, and maybe part 2 is a top 30 show for me, so 18 kind of makes sense. The first part ends in just like this devastating cliffhanger, and then the beginning of part 2, you have a lot of changing in a way that anime loves to do, with a little bit of a time skip. Things are a little bit different. You're trying to put the pieces together of what's going on. And then, it's a kind of a little wishy-washy, but man, it just lands the ending. And I think Gigok put it a good way, where he's like maybe a little aggressive in this, but near the end of Code Geass, it's kind of like a train wreck begins, and yet somehow the car lands perfectly with, it does like 6 flips and lands perfectly with barely a scratch on it, and that's like kind of the ending. And while I think train wreck might be a little harsh, it definitely, the last, 3 or 4 episodes just elevates this series to something that it just like wouldn't have been without it. And so, yeah, I think Code Geass is incredible. For me, there probably is some nostalgia in it, maybe being this high, because, but I think it all comes back to the cast and Lelouch and characters like that for me that puts it this high. So moving to number 17, we've got Pluto. And this is actually both the manga and anime. Because I've seen the anime and it's amazing, and I've read the manga before I watched the anime and it's amazing. So Pluto is this kind of darker retelling of an Astro Boy story, and it's this, the anime is only 8 episodes, I believe, and the manga is a similar amount of volumes. So kind of this shorter story about this mystery that all of these super androids basically are investigating and being involved in, and it starts with the death of a beloved android, and then quickly you see some others who had fought in this big war, and they start dying, and so we follow our main character, who isn't Adam, although he is involved in the series. Excuse me. And you follow Adam and his, or the mysteries of the series. And so I think it's just like the perfect, like it feels like a mini series, right? Like it feels like something like True Detective, honestly, like the first season of it, where it's just this perfect, kind of tighter story that works really well as it's based in this kind of greater mythology that you're kind of familiar with in Astro Boy, and really plays on also just the science fiction genre, and really elevates itself because of that. This is by the same author who made Monster, and Pluto is the only one of his. He also wrote 20th Century Boys. Pluto's the only one that I've actually finished, so it's the only one on this list of his works. Is it Urasawa? I could have the name wrong, but that's kind of what I'm thinking the author's name is. And it's like, just once I read those, they'll be in contention for this list because they're also fantastic. But Pluto is this just like smaller narrative that's just like a brilliant mystery following these killers who are murdering androids. But then you have all of the ethics around androids and are they people, and kind of the role that they played in this war previously. And I think anyone, to see the quality of storytelling there is in the first episode and also the first volume, there's the smaller story of, and I can't remember the android's name, but there's an android who's tasked with being a servant to a famous composer who's kind of lost his touch over the years, and the composer's this kind of hardened man, and the android wishes to play music, and initially the composer's like, you can't, you're an android, you don't understand, like you could never understand the gift of music and creativity and art, and then the two of them slowly form a relationship together and a bond together, and so that's a little mini story that happens at the end of the first episode that perfectly captures the quality of storytelling here, where it's this really somber story where these androids hold this horrific trauma from their role in this war in killing other machines, but also the difficulty of their role in society with humans, and the way that they feel similarly but different than them. All of it just is packaged then in this mystery that is incredibly satisfying to get through and is incredibly well done, as good as any kind of mystery plot of any of these kind of shows that you would see. And so it's honestly just like a perfect 8-volume manga and 8-episode show. So it's a little bit like Vivi, I would say, although Vivi is This is a little darker, and the mystery is a little bit tighter, I would say. But if you liked Vivi, then I think you'll definitely like Pluto. And so you should definitely go check it out. But that's a good comparison for sure. And I definitely prefer Pluto to Vivi. But Vivi was a good series as well. And if you ever like watched Astro Boy, in which, like, I haven't watched a ton of Astro Boy, maybe like one movie growing up, but just like knowing how important Astro Boy is to anime, it also just like is really fun as Urasawa's playing off of like that really really famous canon, right? um but yeah, just like how the questions of the androids and kind of their relationship, as you're following this series of killings, and there's just some really profound moments in it. Urasawa can't help himself but get philosophical, I think, in his works, and he's so great at layering fantastic mysteries. And Pluto is just like razor focused, and I think that's what makes Pluto so fantastic. Um, and yeah, and it's only 8 episodes, right? Like it really feels like a mini series versus a full show, and it kind of benefits from that, I think, because it's just so focused. And either the manga or the anime, whatever is your preferred way, if you'd rather read or watch, they're both fantastic. Because the anime is like 8 40-minute episodes, I think. Um, and is so good. Pluto for a long time is the one that I felt could be adapted into a live action series, because you can like it could have been a season of a live action uh a live action TV show, and it would be incredible and it would fit perfectly. Like I think there was a long time where it was discussions of like, well, what's the perfect property to adapt, which like I don't even really care about anymore, because it's just like, who cares? I've got the anime. But I for a long time, for me, that was like Pluto. So moving to number 16, we've got Berserk, which maybe for some people might seem a little low. I'm not totally caught up with the manga, but I've read a ton of it, and so enough that I definitely felt comfortable putting it on this list. I have seen the 90s anime and the 3 films that came out in the 2000s. I haven't watched the really really bad show, because I've heard it was really really bad. But yeah, Berserk is just a special manga. Kentaro Miura was just one of the most brilliant artists, I think, working in manga, and every page he writes or draws is just stunning. And this is kind of the epitome of, if you want dark fantasy, this is the place you go. And so there's a reason that I think a lot of booktubers who read a lot of fantasy stuff, it's like Berserk is where they're told to start, and I think rightfully so, because it's an amazing offering to the fantasy genre, and just like one of the most profound manga. And so I think it's no secret that maybe the first couple volumes, which in the totality of Berserk's story isn't really that much, but it is a little bit weaker. It doesn't necessarily start raring to go. But then you get to the Golden Age flashback arc, where it's kind of a reset for the narrative, and it really takes time to build Guts' character from the ground up. And that arc is just one of the greatest things I've ever read. And then after that, the story is still very, very good. There's tons of amazing things. There's some pieces of the story maybe that I don't love, and that's why it's not a top 10 series for me, and we can maybe talk about that in a minute, but I want to keep this mainly positive because I love this series. It's number 16 for me. But really the Golden Age arc is like, I think, the place to talk about, because so many people are aware of the Golden Age arc and kind of what happens in it, and then we can kind of allude to things later on. But yeah, so the Golden Age arc really feels like the beginning of Berserk, and that's why some of the movies will just start with it. And you follow Guts when he's born in this, horrific situation. He's born of death. and you follow him through his childhood of abuse and violence, and the way that shapes him into this cold and singular killer, and then how that shifts. So you follow this character who is so deeply nuanced and guarded in a way, and then he's trained to do, he survives because of one thing, and it's swinging his sword better than other people, and how the whole series takes off when he meets the Band of Hawk, and he meets Griffith and Casca and the rest of the crew, and he's challenged to grow around other people who similarly have been through a lot, and he becomes this character that has so much more than what the stereotype of sad boy who swings big sword would be, and he has so much more nuance than some of the panels out of context would make it seem, right? Like, when you think about Guts, you often think about these panels of him raging and slicing through, hundreds of people at a time, or what it feels like. But when you really get into his character, there's so much depth and nuance and like tenderness to him. And so the Golden Age is this like expansive, arc that focuses in the first half on building camaraderie between a lot of people, and then deeply dives into utter tragedy as Guts tries to form his own path, and the fallout of him leaving Griffith that leads to some of the most devastating stuff in the entire series. And so the Golden Age arc itself is one of the best things I've ever read. And then after that, the series certainly gets close to those highs, if not matches it, but is a little more inconsistent for me. And then also there's a little bit in the way that he depicts certain acts of violence that does feel like he isn't necessarily always in service of the story. And so there's little moments like that for Berserk, it maybe lowers it for me a little bit, but that's really the only reason it's not in the top 10. But 16 certainly a great placement for it. Of course, Miura passed away a few years ago, and so we'll never get his version of the ending, but we will get a ending. But and I'm not quite to where his material left off, but from my understanding is it actually ends off in a pretty decent place. And so, but you really think about the character work of the main three, Griffith, Casca, and Guts, and the way that they evolve, past the Golden Age arc, and the kind of risks that Miura took. And then he really dives into fantasy in just an amazing way. And you can't really talk about Berserk without talking about the art style and the kind of, there's such a rich quality and depth to his to the way that he depicts Berserk's world, and it's within every character, but it's also within just like the setting and spread pages, and so many spread pages that are just like unbelievably detailed. We're just so lucky to get a manga like that, for whatever issues that I think I have with the series, or, some frustrations that I think me and a lot of people have. When you get far enough into the story and you just are so attached to the characters and you've been through such tragedy with them, it just kind of melts away into just like a masterpiece of a story. And really it's all about, for as amazing as the character work is, for as devastating as some of the plot turns can be, and the story is very character driven. Characters make decisions that force the direction of the story to change and evolve. But it's all through his paneling, and it's all through his artwork. Everything is conveyed there, where you look at one spread page and it just like, it does have the depth of, like entire books. It's fantastic. There'll never be an artist like Kentaro Miura again, which is a sentiment that I think everyone, relates to, and is like not really a unique take or anything like that. But yeah, Berserk is amazing. If you haven't read it, as long as you're okay with the kind of very dark fantasy that it is, it, it's treat yourself and give it a read. But I think you can skip all versions of the anime. Honestly, like the '90s is like fine, and there's some really great stuff. But really, I think the best thing is like, yeah, just listen to some of the soundtrack while you read Berserk, and you'll be fine. And that's kind of how I view it. But yeah, Berserk at 16, amazing, amazing series. 15 is Orb on the Movements of the Earth, which maybe is like a little biased over Berserk, but because this series is so new. But man, Orb absolutely blew me away. And this is from the anime that came out at the end of, I think it was the end of 2024, I mean. But I could be wrong. It could have been early 2025, but I'm pretty sure it's 2024 because I didn't have it on any of my 25 lists. But Orb on the Movements of the Earth is this historical fiction series that's loosely based on some things that maybe could have happened, but of course like didn't unfold in this way. But that follows a group of characters who are all get caught up in the idea of heliocentrism. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pretty sure I pronounced it wrong in my video on Orb that I made earlier this year. But it starts with a young character named Rafal in the beginning, who is this young student who is very smart and loves astronomy, and he looks to the stars, but his talent, wants him to be attached to theology, and kind of his teachers are like, well, theology is the way forward, but he ends up rejecting that because he loves astronomy, and he really wants to look to the stars and join a science-based profession. And it leads to him getting involved with ideas of heliocentrism, which are, in this era, and especially is definitely dramatized, I'm fairly certain. Is a dramatized version of how brutal some of these things were. Looking into it, like there's definitely some liberties taken here, but like in a way that it's animation. Of course, there's gonna be liberties taken. My voice is going out on me. But yeah, so Orb. So it follows our young character as he kind of gets involved with heliocentrism, and kind of the violent repercussions of that. I loved Orb so much, and it was a great watch-along series. Yeah, so this is one of the series that we watched with patrons and YouTube members, which was really cool. And so, yeah, I think it's great there. And then Oh My G Orb, I agree. I would even put it higher on my list, but it might be recency bias. Yeah, same. Like, I think Orb could go up. And so, also, for anyone who watched 100 Meters recently, same mangaka who did Orb as well. And he is just like, I cannot wait to read anything that he does. And yeah, I can't. He is such an amazing writer. But so Orb is a very dark, very brutal series about people who are pushing themselves and risking their lives for the truth and for challenging what is believed. And it's really interesting because, Orb. It's really interesting watching it in this modern context of people who tend to fall out and tend to in the modern context of people who try to challenge certain things that like are proven correct, or challenge them without like a scientific process to back it up. And for Orb, I think it's this great show of the importance of challenging things through a process and putting ideas and theories that we have through rigorous testing. And I think that's like a huge part of this series. And it's a show about belief, I think, in a lot of ways, and about the willingness to try to find answers, and the willingness to test theories, and be willing to be wrong, and then not standing down when you're right. And all of the characters here are fantastic. And I won't spoil the structure of the series for anyone who hasn't seen it. But Orb's structure is genuinely amazing, and it is kind of revealed 4 episodes in, and continues to kind of surprise as you go through it. But the structure is just like so good. And so yeah. And on top of that, you got a great cast. Rafal and the rest are really good, but it all comes back to this idea of belief. It all comes back to these people who are pushing themselves because they know that the truth is different, and they see that there's cracks in theories, and they're willing to test to find out if those cracks can be filled with different ideas. And it's all about testing, and they put their life on the line for this, and it's just fantastic. And yeah, the author, it's just like I'll read anything that he's making, and so I don't know what he's currently working on right now, but I want to look into it because he is incredible with this and 100 meters. And yeah, I agree, Yuna. It's like, I wonder, am I a little biased having it this high because I did just recently watch it? But it's like the emotions that it stirs in me anytime I think about it makes me feel like this is the perfect placement, if not too low, for the series. I think this will go on to continue to, it's a little bit darker. It's not necessarily an easy watch. There's many brutal scenes in it. But as time goes on, I think it'll just continue to be heralded as one of the defining anime of this generation. And for me, it was just amazing. And it really comes to the structure. Historical fiction isn't necessarily typically my favorite genre, but here it's just incredible. So to number 14. So we're really with some heavy hitters right now. Number 14's Fate Zero. So Fate Zero came out in 2011. It's part of the Fate franchise. It's a prequel to Fate Stay Night. In a lot of ways, I think you can watch it before Fate Stay Night. And I'm honestly not super knowledgeable on the entirety of the Fate franchise. I haven't watched a ton of Fate outside of Fate Zero and some of Fate Stay Night. And yet Fate Zero, I find myself wanting to return to time and again. And I think there's various reasons for that we'll talk about, but it's interesting that I haven't really gotten into the wider world of Fate, and maybe I will with is it a new movie or a new show that's coming out soon that I might check out if it's good. I know there's a lot of people who are very loud about their thoughts on how you should watch Fate. Like what's the proper things to watch and read and all of that stuff. But Fate Zero on its own holds up as just a brilliant 25 episodes of anime. It's by Ufotable, who obviously does Demon Slayer. And for me, this is my favorite production of theirs for sure. Fate Zero, if you don't know what Fate is in general, it follows the Holy Grail War, where you get like these iconic people throughout history who come to support participants in the Holy Grail War. And so you get this, Fate Zero structure is like episode 1 is just filled with exposition and introductions. It's like, here's 45 minutes of telling you what the Holy Grail War is, telling you what everyone's plotting, who are all the players, and then the series will start. So you have this like, it's like 45 minutes, a little bit of like the credits in Star Wars before the movies start. But after that it just takes off. And so the Holy Grail War is this perfect opportunity for great character work and really, really high stakes drama. And all of it is centralized in this story between, Emiya and who's his, there's like 2 rivals. And I can't believe I'm forgetting so many names doing this series, where it's like, I'm already bad enough with pronunciations, but Kiritsugu Emiya is one of the best characters, and how their rivalry and kind of they're like the 2 leaders of, or like kind of the 2 main characters, I should say, of the Holy Grail War. Fate Zero is dark in a way that's really fun. There's some brutal deaths in it, and there's some just like characters who do really messed up things to try to get an advantage in the war or use their magic better. And there's some really, really, really tragic, kind of developments. But I think what makes what makes Fate Zero fantastic, not only is the production from Ufotable, because all of the action sequences are incredible. I think obviously the action sequence I think the action sequence at the end, which is like the Batman Dark Knight action sequence where they're in that white room, is like the most iconic in the series. But there's a lot of early ones, and certain moments that Saber's involved in, that are just incredible. And is Rin Tosaka, is Rin in Fate Stay Night or Fate Zero? Why am I thinking Rin's in Fate Stay Night? Either way, there's, just, it has so much drama, and the character relationships, when you kind of revive these, the kind of issue with Fate, I think that probably the series runs into, and obviously I haven't watched them all, but I can guess, is you revive these characters and they just kind of feel like pawns and not actual characters on their own, and they might not have depth to them, or that's kind of the risk you'd think with this series. But in Fate Zero, it's the exact opposite. The character dynamics between those who are resurrected and those who command them add so much to the series, and really is where the depth of the show and my love of the show comes. It is from the character dynamics and relationships, and then you just have it in this like brutal, awesome death game where people are enacting personal gain, or enacting doing things for their family, or dealing with like difficult circumstances there, and then it's all of it for the Holy Grail. It's just like this awesome collection of battles, and character betrayals and secrets, and and all of that stuff. And so I think it's just fantastic. It's aged so well for me. I think the animation and the production is just like Ufotable at their best, honestly. For as good as some of Demon Slayer gets, I think Fate Zero has just aged brilliantly. And so it's one that, it's funny that I haven't necessarily fallen in love with the rest of Fate, but Fate Zero, I think it's the quality of writing behind every character that just makes it, one of my favorite series. And so lands it at 14, puts it above some other heavy hitters, but I think really, really deserving of that number. 13 is Goodnight Pun Pun. This is one of the most devastating manga I've ever read. So Goodnight Pun Pun is kind of slice of life is maybe a bit aggressive for a description, but it follows, our young character throughout adolescence, and all of the situations that he gets into. It's not a super long series, but it's not short either. It's definitely longer than like something like Pluto. Maybe a similar length to something like Land of the Lustrous. And so we've also in this list gotten to a lot of the heavy hitting manga. But what's so funny about Pun Pun is the unique tone that Asano brings to the series. And so it starts with having your main character in this, just be this little penguin guy. And so throughout the series, he finds himself in just like really dark and brutal situations of characters who are, really struggling with things mentally, or, just like going through really difficult situations. And there's some dark and difficult moments throughout the series, and it's all contrasted with the idea that you have this little guy who is just like, like how are you reading emotion from him? And then all of the other characters are hyper realistic and really, really detailed. And so it's this really unique approach that Asano brings to the way that he crafts Pun Pun's narrative, as you have this main character who's cartoonish and everything else around him is super real. And it honestly almost lets him take things further than you might think, because you have this character who is, designed in this way of, in this just really cartoonish, childish way. And so when you contrast that with just some of the darkest stuff you can imagine in a story about adolescence and growing up, it creates for just some truly devastating and unique moments. There's nothing like reading an Asano manga. His tone is just unbelievable, in how he balances the dark with lighter moments, and how he develops really nuanced human connection, and characters who are so close with one another, and yet are in such difficult circumstances. Pun Pun's kind of a hard series, I think, to describe or pitch. It's hard to talk about, specific plot points without getting spoilery, or conveying, exactly where the series goes, because a lot of it is really mundane, and throughout he focuses on other characters. And there's a lot of other stories about relatives of Pun Pun or friends of Pun Pun, that he interacts with. But I think the real way to kind of pitch the series, is that it is a darker, more realistic, kind of series about growing up, and about growing up in difficult situations. And it follows that. Not going to recommend this to anyone. It's depressing and emotionally draining, in my opinion. It definitely is. It's a depressing series, and it can ask a lot of you, when you're reading it, and that's what makes the kind of delivery of the messaging so unique, where it is, the hyper realistic characters that all surround a character who doesn't feel like him necessarily, or you honestly really project onto Pun Pun, because he's not giving you anything to exist on its own, because you have this little cartoon character. But also Pun Pun evolves and changes in the kind of rendering of him in ways that are funny and eventually really difficult and devastating as he starts to get older. But you just kind of follow Pun Pun from a young age to I think it ends. I mean, most of the narrative ends when he's a teenager, maybe into his early 20s. But it's a devastating series, but one that I think there's a lot of meaning in, and I think there's a lot of value in reading Pun Pun and going through that experience. It's the type of narrative that you should read when you're in a headspace that you can handle it, because it is, like Yuna is saying, it is depressing and draining and difficult, and it'll have you think about, situations that you were in when you were growing up, or, that you're currently going through potentially. That can be kind of hard, but if you're in a place, it's just a beautiful series, with just like, again, it's so hard to talk about any specifics about Pun Pun or situations that he finds himself in or other characters find themselves in. But just think of it as you're following a character growing up in, modern day society, or, whenever this takes place, which is not, 10-15 years ago. And you're following Pun Pun through all of these situations. But it's the kind of unique craft that Asano brings to it, and very experimental in ways that allows him to really, really push the boundary on things. And it's one of those series that I think it's good to read every once in a while, something that's really challenging emotionally like that, as it just pushes us to be more empathetic. But it certainly is a tough read, but in a way that it's just brilliantly done, I think. And that's kind of all I can say for Pun Pun. Like, it's just, I think it's really, really well put together. It's so unique in how Asano approaches the story, but it's devastating, and it can be a tough read for sure. So yeah, Pun Pun at 13. I just think it's just the craft behind it is just so unique. So yeah, moving to number 12, we've got two more for today. Number 12, Ping Pong the Animation. This is another one that I watched within the last couple years. We did it for a watch along, so honestly, maybe like a year and a half ago I watched it. And so Ping Pong the Animation it's a short series. It's only 13 episodes, I think. And that follows a group of high school ping pong players and kind of their journey in playing ping pong. And it is one of the best sports anime I've ever seen. And it's, you can tell from the art style here, the art style is really, really unique. It's not trying to make the characters look overtly beautiful or anything like that. It's trying to be really realistic, and it has this like unique fluidity to it that I find really captures the tone of the story well. What's up, Prime? What up? Just made it to watch the end. Well, glad to have you. Hope you're doing well, and of course, thanks for all the support. We've only got two more, but I'll go over the other picks, as a little recap at the end of the stream. But I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. But yeah, Ping Pong is one of the more realistic sports anime. So, if we look at Kuroko no Basket as like pushing, what sports anime can be, giving characters superpowers basically, Haikyuu somewhere in the middle where you do have players who are maybe, pushing themselves, playing above what they could be, but there is a lot of realism to it. Ping Pong the Animation has even more realism, and there's, it's this kind of really, really grounded understanding of the idea of talent versus hard work and kind of where that puts you at. And so the story follows, our two characters, and it follows the talented character who's struggling and the less talented character player who is all of a sudden kind of realizing his potential, and so their dynamic growing up was always one's better than the other, and that's kind of starting to switch. And that's kind of the center of of the story, but you end up meeting a lot of other characters who, you have a Chinese transfer student who has a ton of pressure on him to succeed. You've got the best school in Japan, right, who are full of players who are just dominant. You've got the current best player in the nation, and then you've got, some people who are trying to work their way up and compete. And so the ping pong sequences themselves are just like amazing and fun, but it's all about this kind of becoming who you are and embracing, the joy of ping pong and things like that I think is just amazing. 100 meters kind of reminds me a bit of Ping Pong the animation. Yeah, I agree. I think that's actually those two are a really good comparison, as they're a little more grounded. They're not just like one tournament or one season. They take place over a lot more time than that, and are really grounded in realism. And you have this dynamic between two runners in 100 meters and then the main two ping pong players here. And yeah, ping pong is so good. Yeah, it's, like all great sports anime, you come out of the series and you're like, man, I just want to play this sport. Like, I just want to play ping pong all day. But it really takes a different approach, I think, than a lot of other sports series that you come across, because of how it tackles talent and this idea of really the people who are the best, kind of, if they do put in the work, they'll get there. But it's all about the character development, and one of the things too is, when you have a prodigy or you're amazing at something when you're young, that kind of boxes you in, and in a way that you can easily rebel against. And some of the characters go through something like that, where it's like all of a sudden they are, you have these characters who are, their whole lives they've been the best, and then they start to slip a little bit, and it's like, what's my relationship to ping pong? What's my relationship to this sport? And I think that's one of the more unique elements of sports anime that this series tackles head on, when you have these characters who, well, I've been the best throughout middle school by far, no one's close to me, and then all of a sudden in high school I'm not, and things are harder and I have to work harder. And I think that's really, really interesting, and people's relationship with it, and how easy it can kind of be to try to just walk away. And so, ping pong, there's some really great, underlying things with some of the characters, and kind of how they approach ping pong, or kind of the, who they are as people, that I find really, really compelling. Speaking of 100 meters, I just watched it and it was amazing. Made me shed a tear. And of course I watched your video after. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, the movie is incredible. Yeah, it's so good. 100 meters, one of the best movies of the year. I need to rewatch it. Honestly, it was so fun seeing it in theaters. Definitely when I do my top 50 anime movies list, will be on the list. For sure. And I'm glad you watched the video and enjoyed it. It's been cool to see that video really do well since Netflix started streaming it. But yeah, Ping Pong the animation, I think it really lands on this list for how realistic it is in sports, and then it also has such a unique angle into everything, and it makes ping pong, the way it dramatizes ping pong is brilliant. All of the tournaments in it are exhilarating, and it really has this great character work and development throughout, where it's just like, yeah, as soon as I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is one of the best things I've ever seen. I had a feeling when I was going to watch this, it was going to be one of my favorites. Just like one of the best sports anime of all time, without a doubt. So moving to number 11, which is the last one for this week. It's funny because as I'm doing this, it's like I forget what comes next. So number 11, we've got Tokyo Ghoul, and we've got the manga here, definitely not the anime. This is one of my favorite volume covers, is volume 3. I love Kaido's speech to Tagashi. Yeah, so good. Yeah, what a great movie. Go watch 100 Meters if you haven't yet, for anyone else watching. Uh, so yeah, Tokyo Ghoul. This was the first manga that I really collected on my own. And the anime, it's a bummer that the anime is so disappointing. Like, even when it adapts the material okay, it's nothing but okay. Um, but the Tokyo Ghoul manga is as good, as people say it is. And this does count Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. Like stories like that, even though there's the split in the middle and they have the rebranding, it's the same story. It's all one story of Kaneki. But so Tokyo Ghoul follows Ken Kaneki, who's this college student who loves reading and is lives on his own and has one really good friend, and he gets involved. He asks this girl on a date who's really cute in this coffee shop that he likes going to, and then the date goes poorly as she tries to eat him because she's a ghoul. And so ghouls are these people with creatures who feast on human flesh and get powers from them. And he's attacked, barely survives, and then wakes up and he's half ghoul, or he wakes up basically as a ghoul. Now, where he also needs, can't eat regular food. There's the, famous anime scene that's memed everywhere where he, takes a bite of food and starts crying and stuff like that. But the Tokyo Ghoul manga, so Ree's included, and the anime is blasphemy. Yeah, so bad outside of a couple scenes, and really its opening is the only thing worth anything. But so then you follow the story of Kaneki as he, there's the underground world of ghouls who are hunted, by investigators and are just trying to live their lives. And he finds this very peaceful, or more peaceful, kind of section of ghouls in Tokyo who don't kill people and take meat from, people who've committed suicide and things like that to try to not feast on regular people and try to live among them and find a balance. And so as the plot unravels, Kaneki gets involved in the kind of different districts, have different kind of gangs of ghouls who, run the shop and have their feeding grounds and all of this stuff. And then he's trying to balance his relationship with humans, his relationship with investigators, and then also his role as a ghoul now as he learns this new world and tries to make it better for people in between. Sui Ishida is a master at making manga. I love the kind of way that he renders characters, and it's just like perfectly captured on this volume cover. This is the vibe of the entire series, is the vibe of Hinami right here. And so Tokyo Ghoul's story, does kind of start out in a way that is, nothing groundbreaking necessarily, he becomes a ghoul, like crazy. Who would have ever thought? But it's the way that his character develops. So, he's kind of this timid person who then realizes that he really has a interesting perspective and stake in this conflict and tries to enact plans to do it. He tries to protect people, and then he goes through a lot of violence and continues to change. And then Tokyo Ghoul Re is really a big swing and hit for me. Where you follow Kaneki as he kind of takes on a different personality, not necessarily willingly, and he really pushes himself to or not pushes himself, but just gets involved in this conflict and totally changes, and you get this whole new cast of characters, and then you kind of meet the other ones. And so it's this huge spanning story, especially when you take Re into account. And everything that's amazing here is Ishida's character work, of course. Any series that's going to be this high on the list has great character work. But then you've also got the way that he panels and the way that he depicts emotions and horror and things like that. That is just fantastic. And so Tokyo Ghoul Read chapter 176 is still one of my most memorable reads ever. I love Tokyo Ghoul and Re so much. Yeah, I just totally agree. And yeah, there's amazing chapters throughout. I think if I'm to talk about both parts, I think Re has maybe higher highs and lower lows a little bit. Like, I think the first part is just so consistent in what it's doing. And then Re, it's like some amazing stuff, and then some inconsistencies. Uh, Glad I caught it live. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. And then from Prime, Tokyo Ghoul is the best first season, but it's so crazy to me that they basically skip 1 to 2 arcs. Hope it gets a remake. Thinks it needs more than One Piece. No hate to that anime. Yeah, it does. Tokyo Ghoul totally needs an anime remake. You know, in even the first season that's like good, it still skips a lot of things and starts to change things for the worst. But I think the biggest issue in any anime production, and it's the huge barrier to ever matching the quality of Tokyo Ghoul, is matching the expressiveness and the unique way that Ishida panels. Ishida gets very experimental, and he does it even more in Chojin X, his follow-up manga that was earlier on this list. But you have just tons and tons of panels that are, you know, hard to parse through and are more about emotion than you know, strictly understanding what's going on. And all of those panels, and you think of, you know, the torture sequences, or you know, some of the fight scenes throughout, it's like all of that stuff is so related to Ishida's unique way of paneling, and it makes this manga feel so unique in a way that I think it's hard for an anime production to fully capture his kind of style. And I think even if you adapt the story perfectly, in terms of you don't cut material out like they did, you still have to bring even more to it, I think, to make an anime production really match the quality of Tokyo Ghoul. But yeah, I think a lot of my love of this series comes from Ishida's paneling, like on a panel by panel basis, in the way that he puts his manga together. And then you just have this, you know, amazing story about a character who's willing to, you know, kind of enter into a society and find a home in a way that he didn't really have growing up. And that's really the center of it. And there's just so many icons of this series. You think of like Arima as one of the most interesting, strongest archetype characters, at least that I've come across. And yeah, so I think it makes it's just one of the best series that I've read. And the ending of Tokyo Ghoul is brutal and awesome, and then the ending of Re is satisfying, and you know, I love that last panel of the coffee mug. And it's a series for me that is, you know, because it was the first manga I collected, you know, I outside of maybe Naruto, it there maybe is just like some nostalgia for just like how much I love all of the characters in the world and the way Ishida draws panels and everything. But I think the manga is a masterpiece, in a way that I wish the anime could have matched. And so it doesn't quite reach the top 10, but it's very close. And so yeah, that's the last new one we'll talk about. I can go over the whole list again if you guys want me to. I can, you know, answer any other questions y'all have. But that's it for all the new stuff. Let me know if anyone wants me to re-go over all of them, or if you want to wait just until next week and we'll kind of talk about them all. So I'm really excited to talk about the top 10. I wonder if that stream might end up being a little bit longer. We'll see. Arima is one of the best representations of the strongest. Totally agree. And he is, you know, I feel like the strongest, and it could be more our perception and kind of language and talking around the archetype, but it feels like it's become such a thing for recent anime, and this is kind of right before all of the shonen anime. Just is like, oh yeah, we gotta have a strongest character who's like Gojo, or All Might, and so Arima is such a refreshing take because I think it's a little removed from that. I would like that. Yeah, we can quickly go through. I'll scroll up to the top here, and we'll go through the top 50 again. So yeah, at 50 I had Aowashi, the first season of the anime. Fantastic soccer. Elfen Lied, the ideal edgy series at 49. We've got Yu Yu Hakusho at 48. This is often what I cite as the first anime I watched, even though it's kind of simultaneous with Dragon Ball Z and Inuyasha. 47, ReZero, one of my favorite isekai anime, which is a genre I'm not like obsessed with. I think ReZero is very, very good. Ranking of Kings, another just amazing series, great fantasy. What are your thoughts on Jason relationship, his relationship with Kaneki? I think the torture sequence is amazing. And I think it's the moment of the series in Tokyo Ghoul that really is the moment where I was like, oh yeah, this series is another level better than I realized it was. And I think he's really important for Kaneki's ability to develop. 45, I have all of JoJo's, which is really parts 1 through 6. I'm not completed part 7 yet. Really love some parts, don't love some other parts, but overall JoJo's is really fun. Had Jojen X at 44, so I'm definitely a big Sui Ishida fan. Blue Lock at 43. This is both anime and manga. I'm not totally caught up on the series, but I think it's just like a really fun sports anime. 42's Bleach. This one is I really want to reread or read for the first time. I've only watched the anime. But Bleach is a lot of fun. Dragon Ball Z, one of the harder ones to place, right? Because I love it so much, but also does it hold up to some of the quality of these other series? Aowashi is getting a season 2. I can't remember, when was that announced? I feel like, was that announced recently? Because if it was recent, I definitely did not know. I don't think I did know. I think it's I might be mixing it up with the baseball anime that's getting a second season. That's super hype if true, because I've only watched the anime, so I'd love to watch season 2. Violent Evergarden at number 40. An amazing emotional series with just like some of the best animation you'll ever see. 39, Kaguya-sama. So funny, amazing rom-com series. 38, Odd Taxi. I think the way everything comes together in this kind of puts it above some of the others. Agretsuko, really for some of the early seasons that I just adore. Another great kind of comedy, slice of life. Bakano, the perfect mid-2000s series. Beastars, I think, is amazing. I love what Studio Orange is doing. Chihaya Furyu, this is one that when I finish it could definitely go up. Was another watch-along series on the channel. Number 33, Naruto, the hardest series to rank on this list, even harder than Dragon Ball Z, because for a long time it was my favorite series. But I do have some issues with it. But man, it's so nostalgic. 32, Made in Abyss. There's some elements of this that I love and some that I just don't. 31, Chainsaw Man. This is both anime and manga, but really part 1 would be way higher. Part 2, yeah, while it's fine, it's not to the level that part 1 was for Chainsaw Man. But man, the animes are so good. Clicking on things now. The Apothecary Diaries, another amazing new series. Just love the Apothecary Diaries. All of the individual mysteries in every episode. 29, Death Parade. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it. It's 2015 seasonal anime. Wish it would have gotten a season 2, but that's all right. Devil is a Part-Timer, my favorite isekai. I think it plays with the genre tropes really well. I adore that series. Blue Box at 27, another one that this is both anime and manga. Could honestly go up depending on how the manga ends. Madoka Magica. I'm not super versed in magical girls, but this show is brilliant. Very dark. Claymore, underrated dark fantasy series. I think people are a little harsh on the ending. Free Ren, another one that could definitely go up as the new seasons start to come out. Really is the face of 2020's anime. Kuroko no Basket, amazing sports anime. Jujutsu Kaisen. If the anime continues to knock it out of the park, maybe it could go up a couple spots. Because I like the ending more than others. And then we had 21 Death Note, and then for today's rankings, it was 20 Parasite the Maxim, 19 Land of the Lustrous for the manga. I think the manga's brilliant. Honestly, this, I almost want to just go read it right after this stream, after talking about it today. It's so good. It deserves a reread. 18 Code Geass. Some of the messiness of it I just like more than other people, I think. 17 Pluto, both anime and manga here. The only Urasawa that I finished. 16 Berserk, the manga, just unbelievable. Rest in peace, Mira. 15 Orb on the Movements of the Earth. Another series that's new, and it's like, man, am I being biased putting it 15? But it's like, what a beautiful series about people who are willing to put their lives on the line for the truth. 14 Fate Zero, my favorite of the Fate franchise, you could say. 13 Pun Pun, devastating, as Yuna put it, devastating, depressing and emotional manga. 12 Ping Pong the Animation, and then we got 11 Tokyo Ghoul. Awashi, it's moving from Production IG to TMS. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder, it wasn't Production IG, definitely didn't put their best foot forward with season 1. When you compare it to when Production IG's locked in, they're amazing. So that'll be interesting. I don't know, do you think that's a good or a bad thing? And then Parasite was my first anime. It was amazing. Oh, that's so cool. Parasite's brilliant. I'm a huge fan of that series. I watched some of it when it first came out, and then rewatched it watched it in its entirety a couple years later. I'm really excited to talk about the top 10 next week. Also, an official announcement will come more, but one exciting thing to shout out to people is that I'm going to start producing a Patreon and membership exclusive video essay every month. I want to do a little bit more for Patreon and YouTube members like you, Yuna, and Prime. And so I thought the perfect thing to do was just give you guys an extra video. And so as a way to hopefully grow the Patreon and YouTube membership even more, so we can start having bigger watch-alongs and things like that, which are really fun. So I figured I'd mention that. There'll be some more official posting about that and kind of like what that is. But for anyone watching, if you're interested in supporting that way, you'll get an extra video every month, which is really cool. Later today, I'll be releasing my revisiting Jujutsu Kaisen's first 2 seasons video. So that'll be up in a couple hours probably. So be on the lookout for that. Free Ren video probably next. And of course, we'll be streaming next week. Claymore Teresa, also one of the best representations of the strongest. They gave the main villain a plot armor. Man. Oh, Claymore is so good. Another manga that's just like beautiful, and forever, all the people who love Berserk, it's like Claymore is the next place you go to read, right? Amazing. I would take it that Haikyuu is between top 1 to 5 next time. Hunter x Hunter should be in the top 10. Yeah, do you guys have any other predictions of what might be in there? I don't think the top handful are going to be that surprising. There's not many series on there that are crazy. I think there's maybe number 7. I think number 7 is the one where people who've seen the series. I think my viewers will like that series being high, but a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, that's an interesting series to have a top 10. But I think um, a lot of others would be interesting. Logan, could I potentially email you about a collaboration or anything like that? Or is it something that doesn't interest you? I don't know. It probably depends on what the collaboration is. But you're always welcome to email me if you, I think, the channel's email is up. If you go to my YouTube page, you can find it. And you can always reach out, and we'll see if it if it works for me timing wise. And maybe it won't now, but maybe sometime in the future. So you can always reach out. Maybe My Hero in the top 10, maybe not. FMAB, that's an interesting one. And probably a good guess there. Yeah, so I'm really excited to talk about the top 10. It'd be fun to get this out, and it'll be fun to revisit this series, top 50 anime and manga over the course of the next couple years, hopefully, and just kind of like, I watch so much good stuff that, if we have, 10 things that change, then it's like totally down to do this stream again. And it kind of feels like this is the genesis of me really starting to stream consistently on the channel. So hopefully it'll be a fun marker. But yeah, so be on the lookout for the Jujutsu Kaisen video later today. Hope you guys check that out. And I definitely want to be making more Jujutsu Kaisen content as the new season comes out, because I think it'll do a lot of really good things for the channel. Especially as we're still in the down season of Haikyuu. Got to talk about other series and things like that. So also, hopefully I'll see y'all next week for the final stream of this series. It's been a lot of fun to do. We'll be doing more lists in the future, maybe starting reading a series on the channel. Still getting ready to start doing that. And then, be on the lookout for the exclusive Patreon and YouTube member video essays that I'll be starting to release hopefully later this month. So thanks again, everyone, for watching the stream. Higuruma video essay, maybe. Good chance, probably. Good chance. Definitely down the road as this season unfolds. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. I'll hope you see you next week. It'll probably be next Sunday, but it could be next Saturday that I stream for the top 10. So